This is the CHRILLCAST. I'm Chris.
And I'm Will.
And we're joined today by who?
Hey, how you doing? My name's Adam.
If you don't know Adam, his channel is on YouTube. It's right here, Adam Koralik.
Yeah, that would be me. Sorry.
Do you want to give a quick little...
Sure.
You don't have to, but you can.
Yes, I am a YouTuber. I've been doing video game-related stuff for the better part of a decade now. And for some reason, these guys were cool enough to ask me to be on here. So thank you very much for the invite, guys.
Well, thank you for accepting it.
You get to help us debut the new steel frame for the podcast. It's got a little different look to it.
I like it.
So today, we're going to remind you guys to like this video, comment on this video, subscribe to the podcast.
Yes, please do.
We appreciate
subscribe
it.
in general. I was number 66 as a subscriber. I did it because of the Star Wars reference.
Order 66.
Yes.
Subscribe. Order 66. Subscribe number 66.
Whatever.
I love it. So today we're going to be discussing for what's today.
Star Wars episode. Well,
yeah, we wanted to have him on last week, but it just didn't work out.
Yes.
sorry, I was unavailable.
It's all good. Will, what's today?
Today is Manic Monday.
Manic Monday is usually like a news topic, so we've been avoiding this topic about 3 weeks now, so we're going to talk about it. The Xbox Series X.
Chris won't let me talk about it.
Will's a big Xbox fan, if you didn't know, Adam.
Absolutely
I did not, but that's good to know.
So I'm more of the PlayStation side, so we cover at least 2 of the 3 houses here.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's good. So, are you excited about this console that's like 3 times the size of an Xbox One X?
Honestly,
have you seen the dimensions?
It's
huge.
ridiculous.
Well, it's going to be a centerpiece of my living room. Everyone's going to look at it and be like, that's the monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Well, it won't just be the centerpiece; it will be the living room. Like, it's massive. It's gonna look like the biggest version of like an Alexa or an Amazon Fire like ever. It's just gonna sit there in the middle, or Google Home. It's gonna be the biggest Google Home ever.
I saw a picture, like a mock-up, and it looked ridiculously big.
Yeah.
I mean, next to the controller, it doesn't look that big.
This might be the mock-up. I'm not sure.
But you know it's right, because if you look at the disc tray, like that's the scale, so you just know this thing's a beast.
Yeah. I will say, when I first saw it, I was like, wow, they really went with the box.
Yeah, there's the One X right there. I mean,
yeah,
and
next to a PS4 as well.
Yeah, that's the Pro. I got a Pro. That is huge. I didn't even realize, because the Xbox One X is already kind of small. So I wasn't expecting that comparison to look, it's going to look bad. But compared to the Pro is kind of a big console, and that's huge. Holy cow.
Well, standing up, I definitely won't be able to fit that under my TV, like on a shelf.
It's like they learned nothing from previous consoles. Like, the original Xbox was huge, so they changed it up. Then 360, they're like, oh, we made it, brick itself by being too hot. So then they put giant fans in it, which is what they did with the original Xbox One, which was bigger than the Philips CDI. Then they brought it down finally, and now we got this thing that goes right back to being huge, but it's huge in like the wrong way. Rather than being huge left to right, it's huge up and down. I don't think we've ever seen a console be like that. That's strange. I mean, you can put it on its side, but then it's just, I don't know, it's like a log.
Just remove the Bose speaker from the prominent place next to your TV and put the Xbox One X where the Bose speaker is supposed to be.
Thank you. That's what I was thinking of. It's like a giant speaker system.
It is.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not complaining. It might actually be great as far as like a game console, but man, what a weird shape.
I swear,
it's definitely different. For sure.
If this thing has any heating issues, Microsoft messed up.
Yes.
So, are we talking? I mean, I don't know what order you've got the subjects in here, but are we talking about the name yet? Is that coming up?
I thought didn't they explain it already?
Yes, they did.
It's dumb.
Yeah, it is kind of dumb.
It's not actually called Xbox Series X. Do you realize that?
It's just the Xbox, right?
Correct. Do you know why? So like Xbox One,
not.
they were like, oh, it's Xbox One base, and then there's Xbox One S, and then there's Xbox One X. So the next version of the console is called the Xbox Series X, eventually. But this actual unit is called just Xbox. And it's like, I'm pretty sure we had one of those.
Yeah,
Right.
we did.
Right. Yeah, here it
Came out in
is.
2001, and that's when I thought Xbox One was a stupid name. I was making the same arguments. Like we already had a first Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how do you
What is with
explain to
Microsoft,
consumers?
that naming convention.
How do you explain to consumers this is new? Like, it's the Xbox. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone goes into a store looking for specific things, just like, but they're generic about it. Like, I'm looking for the Xbox. Well, which one? Xbox One S, Xbox One X, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, Xbox 360, or original Xbox? I don't know, dude. I'll just get a PlayStation.
Yes.
Or a
I totally
Dreamcast.
agree. It's extremely confusing, and their naming sucks. Microsoft just can't name things at all because they went from Windows 8 to Windows 10, so that we already know they can't count and they can't name a system.
What was it? Windows 95, Windows 98, Windows 2000, Windows ME, Windows XP, Windows 7.
Windows Vista too.
Yeah, oh yeah. Just you're adding letters and words, and then back to numbers. Yeah.
You know, going from 8 to 10 did not hurt Apple, though. They did just fine going from 8 to 10.
And then they added S's, but they're somehow immune to things. They're like
I know.
Nintendo. They do whatever they want. Somehow it's considered trendy and awesome. And then other companies do the same things, and it's like, wow, you guys suck.
Except for the Pippin, right?
No, I love my Pippin. No, I
Well,
don't.
You love that you have a Pippin, all right? It's,
I love
it's a
that I
talking
have
piece.
incidentally the only Apple product that I actually own.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I can't say the same. I love my iPhone and AirPods, to be honest with you. They work really well.
Hey, to each their own. I'm not knocking it. I'm just, it's just a fact. That's the only Apple product I have is an Apple Pippin. Do people who watch this channel even know what an Apple Pippin is? Does anyone know what an Apple Pippin is?
I do happen to
Comment
know
in
it
the
is.
section below.
Yeah, leave a comment.
I watched all your videos on
it. We want
it.
you to teach us.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yes.
Okay, so
Anyway,
getting
sorry,
on to...
I didn't hijack things. Go ahead.
You're good. You're all good. You're all good. This is a more interesting conversation than I had planned. Okay. Do you think, we'll start with Adam, do you think this could actually bring fans back to the Xbox brand as a console generation they've kind of lost at the Xbox One?
So obviously that depends entirely on what Microsoft does with it. Do they give you features that everybody's been demanding and wanting and all that kind of stuff? I will say right up front, they will absolutely have no chance in any Asian market. They have a chance in North America. They have a smaller chance in Europe, and they have a pretty decent chance in Australia. That's it. Those are the only three places they even attempt to compete anymore. So that's it. You will not win the console war. I can tell you that straight up, unless the Americans just outsell all of Asia, which is unlikely. But as far as North America and Europe, I would say as long as they don't screw it up, they're in a good. Then they can do well. Historically speaking, console generations, every console manufacturer really screws up the third time around, and then they learn a bunch of lessons, and their fourth one out of the gate ends up being a really solid thing. In Sony's case, the PlayStation 3 started off way too expensive, didn't have adequate software. Sony turned that console around over time. Even though they lost that console war, they set themselves up very nicely for PS4. What did Microsoft do in their third console? They came out with that DRM-ridden version of the Xbox One that everyone hated, and that killed them right then and there. And the only reason they're not in the ash heap of history as far as video games is concerned is because it's literally Microsoft. Their endless pockets, the deepness of that, to be able to keep them in relevance is the only reason they stayed alive for as long as they did. So if they've learned successfully from that, and I'm inclined to think they have based on their E3 presentations and their general attitude. Phil Spencer obviously is not Don Matrick. He does know what he's doing. I believe this time around you have a good setup. But the things that concern me so far is the just gross incompetence of the name. Granted, what's in a name, it doesn't necessarily matter. You're doing brand recognition, but I kind of hate that name. But I think that they have more of a strategy behind that maybe we can get back to later. And then as far as like game software and all that, I think that he recognizes how important it is to make sure that you have a lot of that under the hood. But we'll see.
Right.
I think it's possible that they can do incredibly well in the United States and Canada. I think that they can do incredibly well in the UK. I think they can do mediocre in mainland Europe. I think they can do very well in Australia. But outside of that, I don't think they have any real chance.
I would definitely agree with that, because we were talking to I don't know if you saw any of the episodes with Nerd Talk, but we asked him about, because he lives in Japan, we asked him about the Xbox in Japan, and he said it's literally non-existent. If you find one, it's in like a dustbin somewhere for $100, and I think that's where he ended up getting his.
Dude, I've been to Japan 12 times in the last 3 years. I was there as recently as a month ago. It's completely true. Xbox is totally irrelevant there. You have to really try hard to find it. And it's the thing with Xbox in Japan is it could have worked, but that's its own long historical story. But Xbox One was never going to work. And Xbox, I guess I'm just going to call it Xbox as much as I hate doing that. I'm kind of like in the boat of they probably shouldn't even try over there with it. But I think that they will, only because they don't want to have the internet blow up with articles of like, Microsoft just abandons Japan. Because your average gamer doesn't know that. They don't know how poorly it does there. They just know it does poor. So if they hear that Microsoft's just giving up, it starts to give negative, confidence, if you will, that maybe Xbox is bailing out. Maybe they're losing. Maybe I shouldn't invest in an Xbox because if the Japanese don't like it, then maybe there's a reason I shouldn't like it. People are kind of panicky. So I think that they'll put it out there just so it does technically come out. But beyond that, I don't see it really doing anything. Oh, and I'm sorry, I deviated before. The other thing that I'm worried about with the Xbox is, again, the design that we were kind of talking about. I keep getting, it's like they never learn that people really don't want big consoles. And I can tell you definitely the Japanese don't. So the fact that that is the design they went with, they are really, truly giving up on Japan, other than maybe it getting some sort of release technically. But man, even when you go over there and are actively looking for Xbox One content, there's at best a handful of stores that will carry it.
Is that why Nintendo kind of keeps their console small? It's more of a Japanese market appeal?
Nintendo in general has this philosophy of what we are doing for the Japanese, and the rest of the world can benefit from whatever we create out of that. So they looked at gaming trends in Japan and said, portables. That's everything. People don't really care about home consoles. They don't really care about gaming on PC in Japan. So let's focus more on portables. And I can tell you that's true. Sitting there on any train system, walking around Japan, everyone's on their phone constantly playing video games. Or you'll see a lot of kids with a Switch or whatever, or at the time a DS, or 3DS. But they just focused on it that way. And they said, okay, then we can connect it to a TV. That way we have a home console. Basically, people don't like hearing this, but the Nintendo Switch is the successor to the 3DS that just happens to connect to your television. It's not the successor to the Wii U, yet is, because the Wii U is not a thing anymore.
Right, and a lot of the Wii U games are going over there. Will, what's your take on that? I mean, you're the biggest Xbox fan between the three of us, I want to say. I could be wrong, but I believe that's the case.
Yeah. Of which part? I don't think they're going to outcompete. I think PlayStation's still going to win. They win in every generation. Even the PS3 came back and sold more consoles. So
that's true.
I don't think they're going to outsell. I think they're going to do a lot better than the Xbox One. Even if they sell only a few million more, just the general feeling around the Xbox has to be better. I'm hoping beyond hope that they learn from what they started with in this generation, because it was terrible. I didn't even buy one at first because I was like, I don't have internet connection. I'm not going to be able to play any of these games. I buy all of my games used. So I think that, I mean, I'm worried about the dimensions. I don't really care if it doesn't. I don't care if it doesn't do well in Japan because I'm not in Japan. So hopefully it doesn't hurt them too bad with their business strategy. And really, what's going to sell it is if they have good software. If they have actually good first-party games this next generation, they'll do well. They didn't have this generation, and you can see even with all the extra stuff that Phil Spencer has replaced in the Xbox or has added to it, it really only helped with the reputation. It didn't help with sales.
That's true. Backwards compatibility didn't really push sales, even though it really put them in the limelight with gamers.
To be fair, I bought my Xbox after they started making things backwards compatible because I wanted to be able to transfer my 360 games over. So it got my sale, but I don't think it made a huge impact.
Not as big as they were expecting.
In general, backwards compatibility didn't perform too well financially. But that's what gives me confidence is Phil Spencer had all these great ideas about how to win fans back. Like the core fan base you already had left you, so you have to get them back first before you can get new people. So he was smart about that, and I think this console, hopefully, if history repeats itself, they're setting up for that correct approach. Now the question is, how else do you do it right, and what do you do to entice new people?
Because the backwards compatibility program will likely only include previous titles that were in it already.
Yes. I think they said
assume
that
it
so
will
far.
at a minimum. Hopefully they expand upon that, but it wouldn't surprise
Oh,
me
yeah.
if they don't.
Of course, we're all hoping for that. It'd be great if they just said across the board, all right, plug in the discs. If they work, they work. If they don't, they don't. But we've given you a catch-all ability to try any disc you want. But that's probably not going to happen. That would be great, but
It's not impossible. It would just be where that falls flat as a possibility, maybe, is that if you're making it so that it reads off the disk, like it actually plays data off the disk straight up, then there's really no way for licensees to get any money out of that because they're not the ones selling you a disc from the original Xbox. The way the Xbox One worked was you can have the disc, sure, but you can also rebuy it digitally. And they're forced to create a new digital version, which is why they had to get licenses for every game that they made compatible. So you could see a situation where they try to combine the two. They could have full backwards compatibility, but only like 40 original Xbox games are actually for sale digitally because those are the only ones that were licensed over. Whereas if you have the original disc, hey, we'll let you play it, but there's no way to download it digitally. But at the same time, I can't see them coming up with that idea in 2020.
no. Yeah, that'll take a lot more time and focus. And you'd have to see backwards compatibility drive sales for them to do that, probably.
I agree.
Like if they
But
started,
who knows? They might surprise us.
if they started looking at the metrics and they saw a ton of people using the backwards compatibility, that might, and I'm sure they can find that out. I'm sure there's a way for them to look at the data on all the Xbox One and all of the Xbox
they
Series
have
X.
done that. That report, they have done that report before, and it's actually shockingly low. Like you'll see people come out and they'll try like some of the most popular games for like a little bit, and then they'll stop. It's mostly like nostalgia, and then you're like, oh, I remember playing this, and I'm done. It's a thing that everybody says they want, but people don't really use.
They would have seen me playing about 100 hours of Knights of the Old Republic in crystal clear HD.
Well, there you go. You represented like 10% by yourself. Good job.
I love Knights of the
I'm very
Republic.
pro backwards compatibility. Don't get the wrong impression. I want full backwards compatibility. I want it all to work. But then I sit there and I think about how much of it I would actually play, and then I'm like, I'm kind of a hypocrite.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a hypocrite, but I actually do go back and play more old games than new games. Honestly, I intend to go back and replay a lot of the games that I loved. Like, I don't know if you know how much of if you've watched any of the videos where we talked about Persona, but I own the entire collection, and I've been slowly
Yes, he does.
going backwards and playing all of them.
When you say go backwards, do you mean like in reverse order or initial order forwards?
Yes,
Like Persona 1 up until the most recent, or
both ways.
work your way backwards?
Both ways. I've done it both
Damn,
ways.
son.
I love that series of games, I must tell you. That one and Fire Emblem, I've played all of both of those series.
Very impressive.
And I had a question for you, because I haven't actually made the jump to Shenmue 3 yet. Is it worth it to pick it up now, or should I wait?
I mean, I'm obviously biased in that. I'm like a massive Shenmue fan. Have you played the first two?
I've dabbled in the very first one, but it's been so many years.
I would say that there's no point in playing 3 until you've beaten 2.
Okay. So I should get the 1 and 2 HD edition first.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, from what I remember, I enjoyed what I played, but I didn't own the game at the time. So I had a very limited time frame to try it out.
And you said you were more in the PlayStation field of things?
That's correct. I have a PS4 Pro currently. That's my current gen console.
So at this point in time, at the time we record this, Best Buy is selling the 1 and 2 set for $15.
That's probably what I'm gonna have to go do then.
And then at least, I don't know if they're still doing it, but they were also selling 3 for $35. So you could get the whole thing for like $50.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Hold up, I'll be right back in about. No, I'm just kidding.
Order online.
There you go. So the other thing that we wanted to talk about for the Xbox Series X is, what did you think as far as Nintendo Switch goes versus Xbox Series X? Since we kind of are all thinking the PlayStation will still be a solid brand, does the Xbox Series X have any chance at meeting the same market share as the Switch?
Not even close.
Yeah, no.
0% chance of that. The Switch is a unicorn. It's way too popular for something that is really not that great. And I don't mean that in like, oh, it's a bad system and I don't like it. I mean, it's like, it's from a hardware perspective, it's nothing impressive. And the only thing that makes it unique is the fact that it can be played portably as well as on a dock. And that isn't the most unique of things. But because it's successful, it's been fueled by that success to just start having like every game on the planet ever be ported to it. And that is fueling it even more. So it becomes this enigma of really at best mediocre hardware with a neat idea that somehow ended up having every game ever by everyone on the same system. So that's what made it special, and I'm sure that's probably how it will be remembered, is like, oh dude, that console had everything. Yeah, that hardware wasn't great, but dude, I could play The Witcher 3 anywhere in the world on the go. I could play it on a plane. It didn't matter, whatever. It's also Japanese. It's absolutely destroying over there. That also makes it viable in other Asian markets. It's available. Obviously, it's a super success here. It's a super success in Europe. The Xbox can't do well outside of those 3 markets that I already discussed. So no, there's no chance. And it doesn't have the portability factor. It's also massive. It doesn't. No. Short answer, no.
Well, because the bulk of Xbox's sales come from North America, correct?
Typically, yes.
Okay. Well, I didn't.
The only country, if you want to break it down to individual countries, U.S., Canada, U.K., Australia. Those are your 4 bigs when it comes to Xbox stuff.
Well, you were getting ready to say something. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I would honestly, this may not be a very popular opinion, but Nintendo is basically its own thing. I don't really see the other 2 companies even competing with Nintendo, because generally, even I will have a Nintendo and the Xbox, and I think a lot of people are the same, where they have the Nintendo and the PlayStation or something. So I don't even know how to compare those 2 companies, because I think Nintendo's always going to do well. Even when it's not doing that great, it's doing well.
I'm actually, I don't think it's an unpopular opinion. I think what you stated is essentially a fact. I mean, since the GameCube, Nintendo has said, okay, we're not directly competing with anybody. We're going to go off into a corner and do our own thing. And we've seen that for better or for worse. With the Wii, it was super popular, even though, honestly, it was a terrible machine. I don't care. I stand by that statement. That was a horrible video game console. The Wii U was phenomenal, but it was not successful. It was bailed out by the success of the 3DS and all that. And then the Switch, I've already said my piece on. It's a good game console and a bad game console at the exact same time. It's an enigma, but it's super successful because of its mass appeal. And at the same time, it does not really eat out of the pocket of Microsoft or Sony. Sony kind of tries sometimes to do the same thing. They'll follow up the Wii with their PlayStation Portable or Move controllers. They follow up the 3DS with the Vita. They try, and they don't do as well. Microsoft is more like, hey, dude, let's just work together. We'll let rare characters appear in some of your stuff because you used to have them, and you kind of work with us sometimes, and we'll put stuff. We'll let you have Super Lucky's Tale. We'll just start making our games for your system because we're weird. There does not seem to be a competitive mentality between Microsoft and Nintendo, and there is one between Sony and Nintendo, but I think it's at best a cordial, competitive competition. I don't really think that they're particularly bloodthroat with each other.
I definitely agree with what you're saying. The Wii was kind of an enigma too. I mean, who wants, other than casual audiences at the time, the Wii was nothing really special as far as hardware it just had Nintendo branding, and they had a great campaign for marketing.
It was a GameCube on steroids with a gimmicky controller.
Yeah, I've seen the GameCube prototype where they had the Wii motion controls kind of on the GameCube, which was really interesting to see. But
yeah, you're preaching to the choir, man.
Adam actually owns that prototype.
Yeah, he's got it.
The prototype? Oh, I got 12 of them.
I wouldn't be surprised if you had some form of a prototype of a GameCube with a Wii, but you haven't shown it off on your channel yet. Because I haven't seen it yet. But does anybody have anything else to add to the Xbox Series X as far as potential success, potential failures, anything that you wanted to discuss before we close out this segment?
I look forward to seeing what else they have to say about it. At the moment, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I'm also being as pragmatic as I can about its chances of success. I think that they are going to focus almost all their efforts entirely on the United States, as the same way that Nintendo basically says all our decisions are made around the Japanese market. I think Xbox will focus all of its efforts around what Americans want. and then say the rest of the world has the benefit of the windfall of whatever our decisions are, which will pretty much only be the Canadians, the British, and the Australians who care. I think it's the same basic strategy, but for a totally different audience.
Well, what are your closing thoughts?
Don't screw it up this time, Microsoft. Basically, and also if there's a Fable day one, I'm buying it.
I will say this: if they do screw it up, they will be the first console manufacturer in history to screw up after the third gen. Because, like I said, everybody screws up the third one. That always happens. But the fourth one, they almost always come out of the gate swinging, and they do amazing. So if they screw it up, that'll be a first.
Just real quick, one-word answer is fine. Do you consider the N64 a failure, Adam?
I'm thinking, because it's a very good question. I'll actually... it's not the popular answer, but I'll say yes.
You do? Okay. I would actually kind of agree, even though I love that console, because after the really popular 20 games, and what do you really have after that, right?
It's not even so much the 20 games. It's legacy. It's the thing that created their number one opponent.
That's true.
It created the PlayStation. It created that. It alienated them from almost all third-party developers.
Yep.
I forgot about that, because they were supposed to go to CDs with Sony, and then when they said nope, they scorned Sony, as you've discussed many times.
My buddy owns that prototype, not for much longer, but yeah.
You're friends with the guy in Japan that owns it?
He lives in Philadelphia.
Oh, Philadelphia. I thought he was in Japan.
No, Terry Diebold. Oh,
Okay.
He's only going to have it for another couple months, but I was the last person to play it publicly, actually. And so it screwed up the relationship with third-party developers. And ultimately, as you point out, its retroactive legacy is that most people look back and be like, I remember liking it, but I don't remember why, because there's only a few games on it that are actually any good. I would say that the N64 is probably the console that broke Nintendo as far as like the dominant version of Nintendo that actually not only could control the market, but not only be successful in the market, but control the entire direction of it and have everybody replicating them. And ever since then, like GameCube, they tried. And then ever since then, it was just like, okay, Wii's going to be off in a corner. Wii U's going to be off in a corner. Switch will be off in a corner. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. They're not the dominating force, but people still own Nintendo because it's Nintendo.
Yes, and I think the N64 was the last time that I think that was what broke them and created that failure, because they isolated all third-party developers. They isolated customers. Their games were also substantially more expensive than all the CD-based versions.
That's true.
It was just a bunch of problems, and in the end, they only sold like 24 million consoles.
I thought that was the GameCube. That was 24
That
million.
might be, or was it 22? It's like something in that ballpark, from what I remember. It's surprisingly
it's
low.
very low. Yeah.
I want to
like,
say
people,
the GameCube was the
it's weird
lowest
'cause, like,
selling, wasn't
everyone
it?
had one, or at least that's how it seemed to come across. But then you look at like PS1, and that sold like over 100 million.
Oh yeah, the PS1 killed it, and then the PS2 even more so. Let's see. I thought the N64 sold better than the GameCube though, didn't
Maybe
it?
I'm thinking, GameCube was like 22, OG Xbox was like 24, so maybe N64 was like 32.
32. Yeah.
Boom.
Oh, whoops. There we go. Yeah, 32 million.
Yeah. So there you go. Whereas PS1 was like 100 plus.
Yeah, you can't even compete with PlayStation 1 if you're only selling 32 million. And Sony has never not dominated the market. They've only had like a slow start with the PS3.
Yeah.
You got it. That's not technically accurate.
I get what you're saying. I've watched your video on it. We could really delve deeply into that if we wanted to.
This isn't even a deep dive. It's just a simple acknowledgement. Even though I hate the Wii, it's the one that won the 7th gen.
Oh, that's
true.
It, that's true.
But it won.
But Sony didn't.
That's it. That was all I was gonna say. It sold more.
Yeah.
I hate it, but it did.
Yeah, the Wii probably didn't deserve the amount of sales that it got, but it got them because of the great marketing that Nintendo did. And I think if Microsoft could come up with multiple revisions of the next Xbox, this is my last closing thought on this. If Microsoft could truly come up with some other designs, like maybe xCloud based systems, I hate saying that. It really bothers me that I'm saying this, but they could probably kill Stadia in one swift blow. Even though Google's got tons and tons and tons of research and development ready to go, probably. I think xCloud could kill it. Put an xCloud box in everybody's living room, make it really, really small, and then the Xbox Series X can do whatever it does.
Guess we'll find out.
Yep. All right. Well, as always, please remember to like this video, comment on this video, subscribe to the podcast. Go check out Adam's content.
That's
When
a
you're
decent idea. I like that one. Do that.
get him to 110,000, sometime in the next 2 months. That'd be pretty cool.
That'd be great. I'd be on board with that plan.
But as always,
Thank
I'm Chris.
And I'm Will.
And I'm neither of them.
And we will see you
On the next CHRILLCAST.